The day started like any ordinary morning on Earth. People went to work, students rushed to schools, shopkeepers opened their stores, and families prepared for their routines. No one had any idea that in a few minutes, everything was about to change in a way no one in human history could ever forget. Far beyond the sky, in the silent cold of space, something enormous was moving toward Earth. It wasn't a meteor, and it wasn't a natural event. It was a fleet. An Imperial fleet built for one purpose, destroying planets that stood in the Empire's way. Earth didn't even know an empire existed, and yet it was already marked for destruction. The first sign appeared over the Pacific Ocean. It was early morning there, and fishermen who were already out at sea glanced up when they noticed strange streaks of light cutting across the sky. At first, some thought it might be a meteor shower. Others assumed it was military testing. A few even took out their phones to record it, joking about aliens for fun. But those streaks were not falling. They were slowing down. They were ships massive, metal, and far larger than anything humans had ever built. Around the world, satellites suddenly began to malfunction. Weather teams complained that their data wasn't updating. Navigation systems froze. Television channels started glitching. Within minutes, screens all over the world switched to static. Pilots flying commercial aircraft reported that their compasses had gone completely wild. Air controllers tried to guide them, but communication was breaking down faster than anyone could fix it. Then the clouds over several continents split open. What came through looked like floating cities, each so huge they cast shadows over entire regions. They didn't roar like rockets or airplanes. They moved silently, almost calmly, as if they belonged there. People on the ground stopped whatever they were doing. Cars slowed down. Children ran outside. Neighbors gathered on rooftops or balconies just to figure out what was happening. The ships didn't look like anything familiar. Smooth surfaces, glowing edges, and symbols no one on Earth could read. Governments around the world were thrown into confusion. Leaders hurried into underground command rooms. Military officials scrambled to understand whether this was an attack, a contact attempt, or something far worse. News channels tried to report updates, but nothing made sense. Every expert only repeated the same thing. They had never seen anything like this before. Group of international scientists was rushed into secure meetings. They studied recordings from early sightings and compared them with everything humanity had ever learned about physics. The conclusion scared everyone in the room. The ships had arrived using a type of travel no human technology could explain. Not faster than light in the way science fiction described it. Something else. Something more efficient, more advanced, more natural to the fleet than airplanes were to Earth. While governments were struggling, people on the streets reacted with a mix of fear, awe, and disbelief. Some prayed. Some cried. Some simply stared at the sky in silence. The world had stopped spinning, emotionally, if not physically. Time seemed to hold its breath. Then came the first broadcast. Every screen that still worked suddenly flickered. Even old TVs that were not connected to anything turned on by themselves. The same message played everywhere at the same time, but not in any human language. The symbols meant nothing to people watching, yet the tone was unmistakable, cold, mechanical, and absolute. When the broadcast ended, a machine-made sound echoed across the world. It wasn't a word, but it felt like a warning. And then all at once, fleet began its advance. The ships moved into formation with such precision that even Earth's best pilots could not have achieved it. Bright lines formed on the undersides of the largest ships, glowing brighter with each second. Something was coming. Something powerful. Something that Earth was not prepared to face. But deep beneath the surface of a mountain range, far away from cities and even farther from the public eye, there was a secret facility. Only a small number of people on the planet knew it existed. It was created decades ago when a strange object had fallen from the sky, not a ship, not a creature, but a piece of technology. Something alien. It was discovered in the desert and quickly hidden by a group of nations that decided the world wasn't ready to know. They built a program around it, studying it in secret, decoding its structure, trying to understand the physics behind it. They called the entire effort Project Aegis. For years, the project stayed unfinished. The technology was too complex, and the teams could only guess how it worked. But they built machines based on their best theories machines that could bend gravity in a way humans never believed possible. These machines were unstable and too dangerous to test openly. Many in the project believed they would never be used. And maybe they weren't meant to be. But now Earth needed them inside that mountain facility. Alarms blared for the first time since the project was created. Engineers and scientists rushed from room to room. They confirmed that the ships in the sky matched readings from the original alien probe that had inspired Aegis. It was the same energy signature, the same distortion in the air, the same impossible technology. Earth wasn't being visited by strangers. It was being visited by the same civilization that had left that artifact behind. Commanders of Project. Aegis contacted world leaders immediately and requested permission to activate the weapons they had secretly developed. There was hesitation. Using untested alien technology could be catastrophic. The energy could fold back into Earth's atmosphere. It could tear holes in the planet's magnetic field. It could even destabilize the environment. But the alternative was worse. While the Aegis team prepared for activation, the skies over major cities grew brighter. The ships were positioning themselves. People panicked. Traffic stopped across entire countries. Video calls flooded the internet with families trying to reach each other. Hospitals, shelters, and emergency services worked without rest. Everyone felt that something irreversible was about to happen. The first pulse came from the fleet. It was not meant to communicate. It was not meant to warn. It was a test shot, just a demonstration of what the Empire was capable of. The pulse ripped through the upper atmosphere, causing lights across half the world to flicker and go out. In some cities, electricity shut down completely. In others, strange waves of static rolled through the streets. No one was injured by the pulse, but everyone understood the message. Earth was not being asked to surrender. Earth was being erased. People everywhere began to understand that whatever these ships were, they were not here to negotiate. They had arrived with a decision already made. Humanity's fate had been chosen by beings who had never met a single human. Back in the underground facility, technicians started the final checks as the alien weapons powered up. The machines hummed with an unnatural sound, like metal vibrating and bending in ways it wasn't designed to. Screens flashed warnings. The energy levels climbed higher and higher. No one in the facility knew if the devices would work. No one knew if they would fail. They only knew that they had one chance to protect Earth. In those moments, everyone across the planet shared the same feeling, a mix of fear and determination. Humans had always argued with each other, always disagreed, always found reasons to be divided. But when the sky broke open and an unknown force tried to wipe them out, something changed. People forgot their differences. They forgot their old fights. They only thought of one thing: protecting their world. Outside, the sky grew darker as the massive ships descended lower. The glow from their engines lit up the clouds, turning them orange and red. The air felt heavy, like a storm was forming above every nation at once. Scientists whispered that humanity had never been more outmatched. Leaders whispered that humans had never been more united. Then, in the deepest chamber of the Aegis facility, a single voice spoke through the intercom, announcing that the device had reached full power. Humanity finally had a way to strike back. Whether it would save the planet or destroy it, no one knew. But as the ground trembled and the sky glowed, one truth became clear. Even when faced with the impossible, humanity refused to give up. And that refusal, the simple decision to fight for survival, would become the spark of everything that happened next. The moment the Imperial fleet shifted into attack formation, fear spread across the world like a shadow. People stood frozen in the streets, staring at the huge ships above them. Some held their hands over their mouths. Others whispered prayers. Many simply watched in silence, unable to believe that something so enormous and advanced could exist at all. In the underground facility where Project Aegis operated, every second felt heavier than the last. Alarms continued to ring softly in the background as the team worked nonstop. They knew those ships were preparing to fire something far stronger than the first pulse. The next attack would not be a warning. It would be real. The scientists reviewed live satellite data streaming into the command center. Even though many satellites were damaged, a few still worked well enough to show what was happening in the sky. The ships were moving closer, locking into a pattern no human military had ever used. It was precise, cold, and frightening. Military leaders around the world held emergency meetings. They discussed launching fighter jets, missiles, or anything that could reach the massive ships. But everyone in the room already knew the truth. Even if they launched everything at once, they wouldn't be able to scratch the surface of those alien machines. Still, no one wanted to sit and wait for Earth to be destroyed. Airbases began scrambling pilots into the sky. They knew their aircraft were outdated compared to the alien technology, but they refused to stand down. Pilots flew upward, joining formations as they climbed. They didn't know if they would make a difference, but they wanted to try. That was the human instinct. Even without a chance of winning, they would fight. Across the surface, the world braced for whatever came next. People rushed to safety. Families gathered in homes and shelters. Hospitals prepared for emergencies. Firefighters and rescue teams stood ready for anything. Every nation, rich or poor, powerful or small, faced the same threat. Then, the ground sensors in the Aegis facility detected a sudden spike in energy coming from the fleet. This was it. The real attack was starting. Inside the control room, the head engineer gave a simple message to the world leaders connected through secure lines. He said that if they wanted to activate the experimental weapons, they had to do it now. There was no more time. The leaders agreed without hesitation. There was no other option left. Deep under the mountain, the machines powered by the alien artifact began to hum louder. The air around them vibrated, and the floor trembled. The energy readings climbed so high that some technicians stepped back in fear. No one had ever seen numbers rise like that. It was as if they had woken something powerful and unpredictable. The Aegis team prepared to fire, but before they could, something unexpected happened. The Imperial fleet launched small crafts from the sides of the largest ships. These crafts scattered across the sky like glowing sparks. They didn't look like human aircraft. They were smooth and spherical, with a soft light shining around them. In a few moments, hundreds of them spread across the atmosphere. People on the ground pointed at them, confused and anxious. Some thought they might be scanners or drones. Others feared they were weapons. In a way, both guesses were correct. These small crafts moved with incredible speed and precision. They weren't attacking yet. They were mapping Earth, scanning every mountain, ocean, city, and military base. They had no interest in communication. They simply wanted information. Human air forces tried to intercept the crafts, but no matter how fast a jet flew, the alien drones were faster. They glided around the jets like children, avoiding a slow-moving bicycle. Some pilots could not help whispering to themselves in shock. They had trained for years, and yet they had never seen anything this agile. Meanwhile, the Aegis weapons finally reached full power. The engineers took a deep breath. If this failed, the planet might not have another chance. They entered the sequence to fire. The machine released a beam, unlike anything humans had ever made before. It was silent. It was invisible to the human eye. But deep in the atmosphere, the energy bent space itself. Air shifted, clouds twisted, and a strange ripple moved upward toward the sky. Then one of the Imperial ships flickered. People on the ground noticed it right away. The massive ship that had been glowing bright suddenly dimmed, like a light bulb losing power. The smooth surface changed its color slightly, and strange lines appeared on its structure. Something was happening to it. Inside the Aegis facility. The team stared at their screens. The weapon had hit. The alien ship tried to correct its position, but the gravity around it shifted. The hull twisted inward, slowly at first, then faster, as if something was pulling it from within. The ship folded in on itself, shrinking until it turned into a tiny glowing sphere. Then it vanished. All over the world, people gasped. Even though no one could fully understand what had happened, everyone understood one thing. Humans had just destroyed one of the largest ships in the enemy fleet. For the first time since the sky had broken open, hope flickered in human hearts. The other ships reacted instantly. They didn't panic, because they weren't human. But they did reposition themselves, spreading out and changing their formation. For a moment, they paused their attack. Earth's militaries used this small break to reorganize. Pilots radioed control towers with renewed confidence. Soldiers prepared defense lines. Civilians took the chance to move into safer locations. Humanity had struck back, and the enemy had felt it. But the Imperial commanders were not finished. Inside their command vessel, they studied the data. The gravitic collapse wasn't random. Something on Earth had triggered it. Something powerful. They analyzed the energy signature from the attack and compared it to ancient records stored deep in their archives. The match shocked them. The energy came from a type of technology once used by a civilization so old and so powerful that even the Imperial fleet had considered them a threat. Not many species in the galaxy had ever encountered that ancient power, but those who did had left warnings, etched into star maps and archives. Avoid the blue world. One record had said Earth was that blue world. The Imperial commanders realized something important. Humanity might not be the simple, primitive species they had assumed. The commanders exchanged signals among themselves. Their mission had changed. Earth was now classified as a potential level 3 threat, a category reserved for civilizations that might suddenly awaken ancient technology on Earth. The Aegis team celebrated when the ship collapsed, but the celebration didn't last long. The machines were overheating. The readings were unstable. The first shot had worked, but they weren't sure if the next one would be as successful. The weapon had been built from incomplete knowledge. They didn't know how many times it could be fired. Still, they prepared for a second shot. They couldn't stop now. Above the planet, the Imperial fleet began charging their main weapons. This time, the glow beneath their ships was brighter and much more intense. It wasn't a test. It wasn't a warning. It looked like something that could change the face of half the Earth. Human fighter jets flew closer, trying to distract the alien ships. They weren't hoping to win. They were hoping to give the Aegis team a few more seconds. Pilots risked everything, weaving through beams of light and pressure waves that shook their aircraft. They radioed each other with courage and calmness. Even though they knew they were up against something far beyond anything humans had ever battled. In a moment that would later be remembered across history. Several pilots formed a final line in the sky, placing themselves directly between the fleet and the Earth below. They shouted messages to one another, not of fear, but of unity. They wanted to protect their world, their families, their future. On the ground, families watched the sky and held hands. Many whispered messages to loved ones far away. Others stared upward, their eyes full of a mix of fear and pride. They didn't know if the experimental weapon could fire again. They didn't know if the fleet would unleash something unstoppable. But the entire world waited. Together, in a silent moment that felt longer than time itself, inside the underground facility, the alarm finally stopped. The second shot was ready. Humanity had one more chance. Across the world, people waited for the next moment, not knowing if it would bring survival or destruction. The sky was filled with lights from the Imperial fleet, bright enough that entire cities glowed as if a second sun had risen. The ships held their positions, preparing for another attack. Their silence felt heavier than noise. It felt like the air itself was holding its breath. In the underground Aegis facility, the team hurried to stabilize the systems. The first shot had drained the machines. The second shot was ready, but the sensors showed a pattern they didn't understand. Strange pulses were echoing inside the machines, as if something else had awakened within them. Some scientists stared at the readings with confusion, while others looked at them with fear. They had never seen this type of reaction before. They didn't know it yet, but the Imperial fleet had recognized the energy. Not just the weapon, something deeper. Far above Earth. Inside the largest Imperial vessel, the commanders gathered around a glowing display. They studied the energy signature that had collapsed one of their ships. A single ship was nothing to the Empire. They had thousands, but the technology behind the attack was what concerned them. The last time they had seen this type of energy was in records thousands of years old, created by a civilization more advanced than their own. A civilization that had vanished long before humans walked the earth. The commanders played ancient recordings. The screen showed a world glowing blue, protected by a power that no empire dared challenge. A world believed to be the heart of a fallen super-civilization. That world was Earth. The Imperial officers exchanged signals, cold, sharp, cautious. Their original mission had been simple: remove a possible growing species before it became a problem. But now the situation was different. If the ancient technology hidden on Earth truly awakened, it could threaten even the Empire. They had two choices: retreat or destroy Earth completely. Their pride would never allow retreat. Back on Earth, scientists and historians in the Aegis facility discussed the strange behavior coming from the artifact-powered machines. Some believed the energy readings were simply unstable because the device was pushed beyond its limits. Others whispered a strange theory, something they had never dared to mention before. What if the artifact was not a piece of technology left behind by accident? What if it was part of something much larger buried deep within Earth's surface? No one wanted to accept that idea, not yet. Above ground, the world was changing. In every country, people gathered around radios, televisions, and phones to hear the latest news. Even though communication systems were damaged, enough remained for updates to spread. Families stayed close to each other. Neighbors helped neighbors. Strangers shared food, water, and comfort. Humanity had always fought among itself, but now it stood together like one heartbeat. Children asked adults what was happening. Many adults didn't know how to answer. They simply held the children close and told them not to worry. The truth was too big, too frightening, and too unreal for anyone to fully understand. Meanwhile, the Imperial fleet continued scanning Earth. Their small crafts hovered over mountains, deserts, oceans, and forests. They were searching for something ancient. Their machines read energy signatures seeping through the ground, signals so faint that humans had never noticed them. But the Empire recognized them instantly. Far below, hidden inside Earth's crust, slept forgotten structures, silent and dark, untouched for ages. Over time, nature had buried them, and humans built cities above them without ever knowing they existed. These structures were not machines, not buildings. Not exactly technology. They were something in between. Remnants of a forgotten age when the galaxy was ruled by beings far more advanced than any empire now existing. The Imperial commanders feared those structures. Waking again. Back in the Aegis facility, the scientists noticed a strange resonance. The machines were humming, but not because of the weapons charging. They seemed to be responding to something outside, something deeper, inside Earth. One engineer placed his hand on the main console and felt a soft vibration, as if the machine were breathing. Everyone in the room went silent. Data streams on their screens flickered and shifted. The pattern didn't look random. It looked intentional, like a message. The scientists exchanged confused looks, but no one dared say it aloud. They had no time to explore it further. The second shot had to be fired before the enemy released their attack. But deep inside the Imperial vessel, the commanders already made their decision. They would not wait. They would no longer treat Earth as a small threat. They would treat it as a dangerous artifact world. They prepared a weapon designed for complete erasure. It wasn't meant to harm battleships or armies. It was meant to silence entire planets. Before the blast could begin, something happened on Earth that no one expected. As the Aegis device warmed up for the second shot, a low rumble spread through the ground. At first, the scientists thought it was an earthquake, but the rumble didn't behave like one. It pulsed, it came in waves, and the machines reacted to it. Screens showed massive signals rising from deep under the crust. Energy was flowing upward, like a heartbeat waking after a long sleep. No one in the command room spoke for several seconds. It felt like the planet itself was responding. They didn't know this yet, but the ancient structures hidden beneath the Earth had detected the threat. They were not fully active, just stirring, sensing danger, releasing faint energy that the Aegis machines immediately picked up. The technicians argued about whether firing the second shot might trigger something else underground. But there was no choice. The fleet was seconds away from releasing their destructive blast. The activation sequence continued. Outside, the world felt the surge. Lights flickered. Birds flew in swarms. Animals acted restless. People felt a strange, heavy pressure in the air. Some even felt their ears ring. They didn't know that the energy under Earth was mixing with the energy inside the Aegis weapon. The Imperial fleet noticed the same energy spike. Their sensors screamed warnings. The commanders recognized the signal as ancient, far older than even their own empire. The sight of the reading sent fear through their ranks, but instead of retreating, they accelerated their plans. They would attack even harder, believing they had only minutes before Earth awakened fully. The Aegis team fired the second shot. The beam rippled through the sky, bending air and space. This time, the energy was stronger. Mixed with the awakening signal from deep below Earth, it hit the Imperial formation with enormous force. 2 of the alien ships flickered. Their lights dimmed. Air around them distorted, and then both ships froze. Collapsed like the first one. Not destroyed. Frozen, locked in place, as if time itself had stopped around them. They drifted motionless in the sky, no longer reacting to commands. The entire fleet paused, stunned. Humans watching from the ground gasped. The Imperial commanders realized something terrifying. The energy now flowing from Earth was not just a weapon. It was a signature from a civilization they had feared for thousands of years. If it awakened completely, Earth's defenses could wipe out the entire fleet, possibly even reach into space and destroy more. For the first time since arriving, the Imperial fleet hesitated. But the Aegis team was not celebrating. Their machines were overheating. Sparks jumped from consoles. Warning lights flashed endlessly. They tried to shut the device down, but the alien artifact kept pulling energy from the ground. Something ancient had connected with it. Some kind of system beneath Earth had awakened. sensing the threat, preparing something far more powerful than the Aegis team understood. All around the world, the ground gave off faint vibrations. People felt it under their feet. Animals felt it and moved away from certain areas as if they sensed something rising. The skies darkened strangely, not from clouds, but from changes in the magnetic field. Compasses spun wildly. Human scientists were overwhelmed with questions. What was beneath Earth? Why had the artifact responded? And why did it all activate now, exactly when the fleet arrived? They didn't know the answer yet, but the Imperial fleet knew. To them, the answer was clear. Earth was not just another planet. Earth was a forbidden world, a place marked dangerous by ancient warnings. And now, after thousands of years of silence, it was waking up again. The choice facing the Imperial fleet became clearer. Destroy Earth before it fully awakens, or flee before the awakening consumes them. The next minutes would decide everything, not just for Earth, but for the Empire watching its most feared nightmare return. The air inside the underground chamber felt heavy, almost too still, like the walls were listening. People had gathered again, not because they wanted to, but because the situation above ground had become too strange to ignore. No one wanted to talk about fear directly, but it hung over them like dust in the air, quiet. Everywhere, settling on everyone. In the corner of the room, a group of engineers worked on a tall screen showing movements around Earth. Strange dots and shapes appeared every few minutes. They weren't ships, at least not in the way humans understood ships. They moved in smooth curves, without any sign of engines or wings, almost like they drifted through space by thought alone. No one knew what they were made of or what powered them, but everyone understood one thing: they belonged to the Imperial fleet. People tried to stay calm, but every beep from the machine, every flicker on the wall screen, made someone flinch. It was clear that the fleet was not leaving. It had come for a purpose, and it was waiting for something, maybe orders, maybe confirmation, or maybe the right moment. A young technician stepped inside the chamber with a tablet pressed against his chest. He was breathing quickly, almost out of breath. People turned to him, worried. "They're scanning again," he said softly. "The entire planet. Same pattern as before." A quiet murmur spread across the room. The technicians exchanged glances. They had watched these scans all day, and every scan seemed stronger than the last. Whatever the fleet wanted to find, it hadn't found it yet, but it wasn't giving up. Someone asked gently, "Are the scans harmful?" "No," the technician answered. "At least, not in a physical way." Then he added, "But they feel like pressure, like something pressing on your mind." Everyone understood that feeling. Many people had reported the same thing, a strange sensation inside the head, like being watched through thought instead of eyes. Near the front of the room stood the lead analyst, an older man with a quiet presence. People trusted him because he never panicked. He looked at the screen again, eyes narrowed as he tried to understand the fleet's behavior. He wasn't afraid to admit when something confused him, and today everything confused him. "They're searching for something specific," he said slowly. "Not attacking, not making demands, just searching." Someone asked what most people were thinking. Searching for what? He didn't answer, not because he didn't want to, but because he honestly had no idea. Outside the underground facility, things were equally tense. Even though the sky looked normal, people knew something enormous was floating above them. Sometimes, if someone stared at the sky for too long, they swore they saw faint shadows, like massive shapes hiding behind clouds. It was impossible to tell if it was imagination or something real. Families stayed indoors more than usual. Streets were quieter. Schools stayed open, but attendance dropped. No one wanted to spread fear, but everyone was scared anyway. In one home, An elderly woman sat by her window, hands wrapped around a cup of tea. She looked up at the sky every few minutes. She didn't care about scanners or alien fleets. She just wanted peace. She had lived through other crises before, and something about this one felt different. Silent but heavy. Down the street, a group of children whispered to each other while drawing pictures. Their drawings showed strange shapes hovering above Earth, little blue circles around the planet, and humans trying to communicate. Kids sensed tension, even when adults tried to hide it. Meanwhile, in the underground chamber, tension grew. "We need to send a message," someone finally said. "We need to tell them we don't want conflict." But the lead analyst shook his head. "They're not listening to our signals. It's like they don't hear us at all. Or maybe we're not speaking in a way they understand." The idea of misunderstanding was frightening. How do you communicate with an empire that doesn't think like you, doesn't speak your language, and doesn't even look at reality the same way? The room fell silent for several minutes. Then a woman walked forward, holding a small notebook. She had been studying their patterns for days. She cleared her throat. "I don't think they came because of us," she said carefully. "At least not for something we did wrong." People turned toward her. She continued. "Look at the way they scan. They're not searching for weapons. They're not scanning for armies. They're looking for something deeper. Something inside Earth. Or maybe something inside us." A few people shifted nervously. "You think they want someone?" a technician asked. The woman hesitated. "Maybe. Or something connected to their history." The idea did not bring comfort. If an alien empire was searching the planet, it meant Earth had something they wanted enough to send a fleet. Hours passed slowly. People took turns monitoring equipment. Others stepped out to breathe fresh air. But no one relaxed. Then, just after midnight, something unexpected happened. A pulse swept across the room. Not sound, not vibration, but a strange wave that everyone felt in their chest. Screens flickered, lights blinked, and the air itself seemed to thicken. People froze. What was that? Someone whispered. The lead analyst stared at the equipment. A communication signal. Everyone looked at the screen. A single symbol appeared, bright, complex, and unlike anything humans had seen. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a command. It was a question. A simple one, a repeating shape. A pattern that felt familiar, though no one knew why. "It's directed at Earth," the analyst said softly. "Do we respond?" "That's the problem," he replied. "We don't know what it means." The room fell into confusion. Some believed it was harmless. Others feared responding might invite danger. Some people argued Earth should stay quiet. Others said silence might look like refusal. In the middle of this argument, a calm voice spoke up. "You need to understand them, not fear them." People turned toward the voice. It belonged to a quiet researcher who rarely spoke but always observed. She walked closer to the screen. "Look at the symbol," she said. "It's not random. It resembles ancient shapes found across multiple cultures on our planet." Someone frowned. "You're saying we've seen this before?" "Not exactly," she said, "but something close. Similar patterns appear in old carvings, symbols passed through generations. What if the fleet isn't searching for an object, but searching for origins?" The idea felt strange, but possible. Maybe Earth had a story older than humans. Understood. Maybe the fleet believed Earth held something that belonged to them. Maybe Earth wasn't as isolated as humans once. Thought. The analysts debated through the night, trying to match the symbol with any known language structure. They fed it into databases, translated it through multiple systems, and compared it with patterns from human history. But nothing matched. The fleet sent the symbol again. This time, stronger. A second question. A third. Almost impatient. As dawn approached, the researchers felt weighed down. The pressure in their minds grew stronger, not painful, but intense. It was clear the fleet wanted answers. They needed to respond soon. Finally, the analyst made a decision. "We'll send a message," he said. "A peaceful one. A sign that we want dialogue." People nodded. It was the best option. The message was simple, a universal pattern representing calm and acknowledgement. The transmission sent a gentle signal outward, hoping the fleet understood. Everyone waited. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Silence. No scan. No symbol. No shift. Just silence. People exchanged nervous looks. Did the fleet dislike the message? Did they misunderstand it? Or were they thinking? Then, just before sunrise, the fleet responded. Not with a threat, not with a scan, but with a shift in position, a slow, deliberate move that brought the massive formation slightly closer to Earth. Not attacking. Not retreating. Not approaching. The feeling in the room was almost too much to describe. A mix of fear, wonder, confusion, and something deeper, like the feeling just before discovering a truth hidden for centuries. Earth had spoken. And the fleet had listened. But what they would do next? No one knew. People stood frozen, staring at the sky. Something was coming. Something huge. And this time, it felt personal. The first rays of morning light touched the world gently. But no one felt the usual calm that came with sunrise. Instead, the sky looked almost too quiet, as if the air itself was preparing for something. People stepped outside with slow steps, looking up without meaning to. Even those who didn't know what was happening could sense it. Something heavy was hanging above Earth, silent but present. In the underground control center, the atmosphere was even more tense. The screens glowed softly, showing the Imperial fleet in perfect formation. The ships did not move fast or aggressively, but the small shift they made toward Earth during the night had changed everything. It meant the fleet had heard Earth's message. It meant they were now waiting for the next step. Experts stood around the main table, staring at the symbols the fleet had sent earlier. Some rubbed their eyes from exhaustion. Others tapped their fingers nervously. No one spoke for a long time. They were still trying to make sense of the silent approach, the message Earth had sent, and what the fleet might be expecting next. Finally, the lead analyst broke the silence. They moved closer, not to attack, but to observe. They're expecting communication. A few people exchanged uneasy glances. But how do we communicate with them? Someone asked quietly. We don't know their language. We don't know what those symbols mean. The analyst sighed. We have to find a way. Remaining silent won't help anymore. A gentle voice spoke from the back of the room. It belonged to the same researcher who had recognized the ancient-like pattern in the symbols. They're not just sending messages, she said. They're listening to us. Not just to our words, but to our thoughts, our signals, the energy around the planet. People turned toward her with confused expressions. She continued, Every time we react, I think they sense it. Not directly, but through the emotional energy humans produce. It might be part of how they understand us. The idea sounded strange, but everyone had felt something, a pressure, a presence, a quiet weight that wasn't physical. Something about the fleet's scanning felt like it was touching human thoughts. A technician looked at the screen and whispered, Do you think they can read our minds? No, the researcher replied. Not in a personal way. But I think they sense fear, confusion, and maybe honesty. The analyst nodded slowly. Then our message must be honest, simple, something they can clearly interpret. He turned to the communication team. Prepare a second transmission. Something calm. Something that shows we want understanding. The team went to work. They crafted a new signal using simple patterns of light and energy, nothing aggressive. Nothing complex, just a quiet wave meant to express peace. When the transmission was ready, the whole room went silent. "Send it," the analyst said. The signal traveled into space, invisible to human eyes, but clear on the monitors. Everyone watched as it left Earth and floated toward the fleet like a soft ripple. Seconds passed. Then, minutes. No one moved. No one breathed too deeply. Finally, something shifted on the main screen. The fleet stopped moving. For the first time, the massive shapes above Earth became completely still. Not drifting, not repositioning, just waiting. Then a single dot of light appeared in the middle of their formation. It pulsed slow and steady, dot once, dot twice, dot three times. The same symbol from before emerged again, but this time it was brighter, clearer. Almost as if the fleet wanted to make sure Earth didn't misunderstand, the researcher stepped forward slowly. "This symbol, I think it means identity. They're asking who we are." The room felt the impact of those words. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a demand for surrender. It was a question. They wanted to know Earth. "They're asking who we are," someone repeated softly. "Not what we have. Not what we can do. Just who we are." It was a strange kind of hope, small, fragile, but real. The analyst spoke again. "Then we answer honestly." He turned to the communication team. "Prepare a message about Earth, not political, not scientific. Something simple, something human." They worked for nearly an hour, crafting a message that captured what Earth was: a place of oceans, forests, families, dreams, struggles, and hope. A place full of stories. A place that wasn't perfect, but tried to become better. When the message was ready, the analyst read it quietly. "This is who we are. We live on this world. We love it. We protect it. We do not want conflict. We seek only peace and understanding." He nodded. "Send it." The room held its breath again. The message traveled outward into the silent sky. This time, the response came quickly. The fleet shifted their formation again. A soft glow spread across several of the distant ships. The symbol changed, morphing, stretching, twisting, until it formed a new shape. The researcher's eyes widened. "This is familiar. What does it mean?" Someone asked. "I'm not sure," she said slowly. "But it resembles symbols found in old cave markings in multiple continents. Patterns no one has been able to explain for centuries." A quiet murmur spread across the room. "So? They've been here before." A technician whispered. The researcher nodded slightly. "Maybe not them, but something related to them, or something that shared a past with early humans." The thought was overwhelming. If the fleet knew these ancient patterns, then Earth might have some connection to them from long before recorded history. The analyst leaned closer to the screen. "They're not here for war," he said. "They're searching for history." The idea settled into the room slowly. Some felt relieved. Others felt even more confused. History was vast and incomplete. What were the fleet trying to find? A person? A location? An object? A memory? Before anyone could speak again, another soft pulse spread across the monitors. This time, the symbol wasn't a question. It was a direction, a point on Earth, a specific point. People leaned forward in shock. "They want us to go there," the analyst said, voice low. "But why?" Someone whispered. The researchers studied the coordinates. They pointed to a remote location far from cities, far from any major structures, an untouched stretch of land that humans rarely visited. She whispered, "Something is there." The analyst straightened. "We need a team." The room shifted instantly into action. A small group was chosen: scientists, observers, and a few volunteers who had been calm throughout the crisis. They weren't soldiers. They didn't carry weapons. They carried equipment for recording, studying, and communicating. The team left within an hour, flying toward the location the fleet had highlighted. As they traveled, the sky felt unusually still, almost expectant. When they arrived, the land around them was quiet. There were no buildings, no ruins, no old carvings or strange stones. Just open ground and a soft breeze. One of the team members looked confused. "There's nothing here." But the researcher shook her head. "Not on the surface." She walked a few steps and kneeled, placing her hand on the ground as if listening. "There's something beneath us," she whispered. The others scanned the area with their equipment. After a few minutes, their devices picked up faint readings, very old, very deep, and unlike anything made by humans, a structure, or something shaped like one, buried far underground. The fleet had not come to destroy Earth. They had come looking for this. The team exchanged uncertain looks. Should they dig? Should they wait? Should they send a message back to the fleet? Before they could decide, a soft humming sound filled the air, not from Earth, but from the sky above. The fleet had shifted again, moving closer, watching the exact location. It wasn't an attack. It was anticipation. Almost hope. The researcher stood slowly, looking at the sky. "They want us to uncover it," she said. Someone asked, "But why us? Why humans?" She looked at the ground again. "Because whatever this is, it's part of our story too." The team prepared equipment, unsure of what they would find or how deep they would need to go. The task felt enormous, almost impossible. But they were no longer acting out of fear. Something inside them, something old and instinctive, felt connected to the place. Back in the control center, the analysts watched the team's signals from afar. The fleet remained silent but attentive. Everyone felt the same thing. The story was bigger than they thought. Much bigger. And Earth was no longer just reacting. Earth was becoming part of the conversation. The ground was quiet under the early afternoon sun, but everyone standing there could feel something deep beneath the surface. It wasn't a sound or a vibration. It was more like a presence, something waiting to wake up after a long, long sleep. The small team on the field stood still for a moment, gathering courage, as if they knew that whatever they uncovered would change how humanity understood itself. The researcher walked slowly across the open land, looking at the readings on the device she held. The signal grew stronger as she walked. The others followed, feeling the same pull she felt. There was no clear marker on the ground, no stone, no ruins. Nothing that showed a great secret was buried there. But the machines detected shapes below, smooth, curved, layered structures older than any civilization humans had ever recorded. They began setting up equipment to scan deeper. The quiet breeze that moved across the field felt strangely gentle, as if nature itself understood the importance of the moment. Above them, high in the sky, the Imperial fleet hovered without moving. For the first time since their arrival, the sight of those giant ships didn't bring fear. They looked like watchers, waiting patiently, not enemies. Back in the control center, the analysts and technicians watched the live feed from the field. Every small change in the readings made someone sit up straight. Every new discovery made hearts beat faster. Yet there was no panic now, only a deep curiosity mixed with a strange sense of destiny. The ground team finally found the exact spot where the signal was strongest. They cleared the surface gently, removing the top layer of soil. At first, it looked like nothing, just earth. But then, under the shallow dust, a faint smooth line appeared perfectly straight, as if cut by something far more advanced than any tool humans used. One of the team members touched it lightly with the back of their hand. The material wasn't stone, metal, or anything familiar. It felt cool, almost alive, as if it reacted to human presence. The researcher whispered, "This is not natural. And it's not human-made." Everyone stepped back slowly, staring at the faint shape. "What do we do?" someone asked. "We keep going," she replied softly. "Whatever this is, it was meant to be found." Carefully, gently, they brushed away more soil. More straight lines appeared, forming shapes, patterns, and edges. The structure beneath the ground wasn't random. It had symmetry and purpose. It looked like the top of a sealed chamber, buried long before human history began. From the sky, a soft light spread across one of the ships, just a small glow, almost like a signal of encouragement. Everyone noticed it, even those watching from the control center. The analyst in the control room murmured, "They know we're close." Another technician added, "They're waiting for us to open it." But no one knew how the team on the ground stepped around the revealed surface carefully, trying to find any sign of an entrance. Minutes passed. Then an hour. Sweat gathered on foreheads, not from heat, but from the weight of uncertainty. Then it happened. The moment the researcher placed her palm flat on the smooth surface, the material responded. A soft pulse spread outward from her hand, glowing faintly and tracing lines across the hidden structure. The soil around it moved slightly, as if pushed from beneath. The ground didn't crack or break, it simply shifted apart, creating a clean circular outline. Everyone jumped back in shock as the surface slowly lowered itself, revealing a dark, empty passage leading downward. No dust, no sound, just a perfectly shaped entrance, waiting in silence. The world seemed to pause. From above, the fleet remained still. Not a single ship moved. The team looked at one another. No one wanted to be the first to step inside, but no one wanted to run either. After a moment, the researcher took a breath and spoke softly. "If this thing reacted to human touch, maybe it was meant for us." She took a small light and stepped toward the opening. The others followed, staying close. Every step felt heavier, like walking into the heart of a story they had never known they were part of. Inside, the walls glowed faintly on their own, lighting the path with a soft, warm color. The material looked ancient and futuristic at the same time, smooth, but showing signs of age. The passage led downward in a gentle slope until it opened into a wide chamber. The room was enormous. The ceiling curved like the inside of a dome. In the center stood a single tall structure, shaped like a pillar but covered in patterned symbols similar to the ones the fleet had been sending. The team moved closer. The researcher reached out to the pillar, but before she touched it, the patterns began to glow on their own. Soft pulses traveled up and down the pillar, adjusting, shifting, reacting to their presence. Then something unexpected happened. A projection appeared in the air, faint at first, then clearer. It wasn't a person. It wasn't an alien. It was a flowing image, showing distant stars, worlds, and shapes moving across the galaxy. The projection changed again. It showed Earth, but not like it was today. Not with oceans and continents shaped the way they are now. It showed an ancient Earth, long before humans existed. The team watched in silence, barely breathing. The projection then showed tall structures rising from Earth's surface, massive cities made of the same smooth material they stood inside. Beings moved through the cities, not clearly human, not clearly alien, more like silhouettes of light. The next part stunned everyone. The ancient civilization built ships and left Earth. They traveled far across the galaxy, spreading knowledge and helping young worlds grow. They were explorers, builders, teachers. But then the projection changed again. It showed a great conflict, dark shapes spreading across space, consuming everything. The ancient beings left a message behind, hidden deep under Earth, sealed away until the right moment, until humans reached a certain point.